Are you ready to get started, Gordon?
Yeah, I think we can get started.
Okay, so right, if we can call the meeting to order. Start with item number 2, call to the audience to attend the meeting by technological means. Members of the public may either access the link to watch a video stream on the MAG website by clicking on the view and listen link provided under the related links section at www.azmag.gov/event/27098. Or members of the public may submit written comments relating to this meeting to www.azmag.gov/comment within 1 hour of the posted start time for the meeting. Oh, moving on to item number 3. Approval of the May 7th meeting minutes. If everybody could take a minute or so, go through those. And after that, we can do a verbal motion, second, and approval. Maybe about a minute or so.
While people are looking over the minutes, I want to pull up the attendance and make sure that if there's anybody that's not on the attendance list checked, let me know. So I'm going to share my screen real quick again. So Carl Rockwell, I don't believe was going to be on. Is there someone here from Maricopa County as a proxy for him?
Yeah, I'm in. This is Ken Akuare. Yeah, I'm sitting in for Carl.
Okay, thank you. And Gregory Arrington, are you on? Jeff Hearn?
Gordon, Jeff had a funeral to attend today, so.
Okay. Is Brian Gallimore here?
I talked to him this morning. He said he was going to be on, but.
Joe Malone? Paul or Peter? Are either of you on yet?
Peter Kandaris, I'm here.
Great, thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone.
So if we can do a motion and second for the approval of the April 7th meeting minutes. We get a motion?
This is Warren, I'll motion.
Thank you, Warren. And a second?
This is Roy, I'll second.
Thank you, Roy. If we can get a verbal aye for everyone who's for it, approval.
You need to do a roll call vote since we're meeting remotely.
Meeting remotely. Okay. Do you have the list up? There
There
we go.
It should be up now.
Yeah, I've got a number of screens open also. Avondale.
Yay.
Buckeye is a yay. Chandler.
Yay.
El Mirage. Gilbert.
Yes.
Glendale.
Yes.
Goodyear.
Yes.
Maricopa County.
Yes.
Mesa.
Yes.
Peoria.
Yes.
Phoenix.
Alex Molko, yes.
Thank you. Scottsdale.
Yes.
Surprise.
Yes.
Tempe.
Yes.
And Youngtown. Not present. So looks like the yeses get it, and we have an approval of the April 7th meeting minutes. Moving on to the staff report. Looks like, Gordon, you've got something there for a back to office plan.
Yeah. I don't have a whole lot to report in your handout or in your packet. I included this handout that kind of summarized what the plan was. And in July, is when they're talking about starting phase 3, reopening our office, but they're only going to have a maximum of 15 employees per floor. And there's not going to be any outside meetings in that phase 3. So it's not until phase 5 when they're going to have the office open to all member agencies and visitors. And the earliest they talked about doing that was in August. I suspect that's not even going to happen. As I was talking earlier with one of our IT guys, they still have to test out, putting computers in all the meeting rooms and being able to broadcast Zoom through our video conferencing system and all these things. So I think it's probably likely that we're not going to have any in-person meetings for this committee the rest of this year. We're supposed to get another update at our staff meeting on Friday, but that's about all I know right now.
Do you know, is the intent after, let's say, August, is that going to be a joint in-person and virtual meeting platform? Is that kind of what the thought is?
Yeah, they're planning on, when we do start in-person meetings, they're going to continue to have the Zoom meeting option. They want to do that for all the committees that have been doing, the Zoom meetings now. And so that also means we need to make sure our meeting rooms can handle that and are capable of feeding the participants that are in the room, the mics and the video from them through our Zoom system. And also, be able to, access the network so I can show you the things that are on here, as I do in these meetings. So yeah, we're planning on continuing to have the Zoom option available even for in-person meetings, which is going to take a little bit of setup. And also we're going to continue, the plan is to continue streaming them over YouTube. So again, we would need to have the Zoom meeting set up because that's how we record the streaming for YouTube.
So is that kind of the new outlook, the new normal phase 5 is everything is going to be kind of a combined virtual in-person
I
layout?
think that's the idea, yes.
Okay.
I'm hearing there's going to be a lot more parking availability in the garage now.
Yeah, probably. I realized that I've been paying for parking for the past year because it automatically comes on my paycheck, even though I haven't been to the office, but maybe twice all year. But so yeah, there'll be plenty of parking.
Wow. Well, thank you for the update. Any comments or questions on that? As we move through the 2021 year, things just keep getting more interesting. All right, moving on to cases under consideration, item number 5, case 2101 miscellaneous corrections. These are the same 3 we've had on there for a while. Gordon, have we had any additions or have we had anybody talking about additions on any others?
There's no new additions this month. I
Okay.
haven't heard of any specific ones.
Oh, like we say every month, this is for just bloopers, just spelling errors, or maybe numbers that are backwards or something. So if anybody has anything and finds anything, just let us know and we'll get it on our miscellaneous corrections. And last meeting of the year, we will go through them and vote on them and see if we can't get our corrections fixed. So with that, moving on to number 6, case 2102, update detail 110-2. Carl's not here. McDodd, is there anybody there couldn't talk about this case?
Yeah, I'm sitting here, but I don't have information. Carl did not. He just wants me to listen in. I don't know what he wants me to bring back, but he didn't discuss anything that is for discussion at this meeting that I could do anything that I could speak to. So I don't have, so McDodd doesn't have anything to.
Craig, I did do a little update based on some feedback I got from Carl. He wanted me to add this note on the detail saying property line option 1 should not be used with jurisdictional boundary option 2. as a way to try and keep people from using these two line types that are very similar. There was some discussion at the last meeting if we should add like the PL property line on this line type as well. And I did some research on that. And one thing that I discovered, which is in your packet, is that for the national standards, they are using that line type for the property line. So I think it would be a good idea to leave that as an option without the PL on it, since that's already kind of a national standard that everyone is using.
Okay, I tend to agree.
Otherwise, it was on the agenda for action, but since there's been some changes and Carl isn't here, I'm not sure if now's the best time to vote on it.
I would probably agree with that as well. Just I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look at that. If anybody has any comments on it or concerns, open the floor up to any discussion right now. So I tend to agree, Gordon. I think what we should do is I don't think there's any comments. I don't think it would be bad to vote on it right now, but with Carl not here, I think it wouldn't be bad to push it off till next month, and we can have him present it, and we can vote on it and handle it next month.
Let me ask a question. So is what Gordon said, is that in agreement with Carl's proposal?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the information he provided to me to add to this, to his detail. One thing that seems pretty clear from what he was saying last month is that Maricopa County is moving ahead with using the property line boundary option 2 and the jurisdictional boundary option 2, regardless of whether MAG changes our detail or not. And by changing this jurisdictional boundary 2 from a thick black line like it is here to the one with 2 dashes, there was concern from the other members that it's too similar to this property line, which is why that note was added. And of course, MEG doesn't have to adopt this change if they choose not to, but if Maricopa County is going ahead and using it anyway, I think it probably would make sense to show that as an option within MEG, since they do a lot of the work in MEG.
Okay.
Yeah, and one of the concerns we have out here in Buckeye is we have a lot of McDOT jurisdictional boundary lines on our plans. So, you know, we can just switch to the option 1 for the jurisdictional boundary line. It is more obvious, stands out a little more. And if we have to, we can always mask some information in if it's covering it up, or, you know, work from there. But we'll probably stick with the option 1. Again, just because we have so many different boundaries out here, it's nice to be able to have it stand out.
You know, I think what he showed on the samples that were included in here is if you're using option 2, it can be shaded or in the background so that you can see other items on top of it. Whereas the solid black line will cover up anything it's on top of it and make it more difficult to see other, you know, utilities or line types underneath it.
Right. So yeah, but no, I'm good with how he's got it laid out. I'm going to make sure everybody on the committee is good with it. But like I said, I would like to have him here with the small change, and he can vote on it when he's here and get this one off of our plate. So not hearing any comments. Moving on to item number 7. Case number 2103, updating detail 212, the utility pothole detail. I know it's sponsored by Jim, but Arvid, I know you've been working pretty diligently on this. Are you out there, Arvid?
Yes, sir, I am. Hello.
How are you doing?
Gordon is pulling it up, and after our last meeting and then the working group, what is in front of you is what was agreed upon to present with regards to eliminating the detail 213 because of the confusion it would create from a temporary. And what I did is I added the notes that were on the proposed 213 on the right there that were presented at the working group that the members wanted to have on the MAG 212 detail if a pothole was going to be used in a temporary application. We also eliminated on the left under section view, the first bullet point, which was native backfill. The preference was for it to be either AB backfill only compacted or a CLSM type material. And then the other items that are on there, the up in the upper right, the repair per mag 312 14.4 is the paragraph that talks about the material availability for replacing asphalt if a coupon method is not used. And the materials in 321.14.4 paragraph 2, which are becoming more common, the aqua patch, some of these other materials that our agencies are grabbing onto that are permanent in nature because of the engineering in them. They're using those in lieu of just hot patch because of the limited concerns for the getting the proper compaction. There was a discussion about doing something on the type A pavement repair that is somewhat limited in its use, but it is used, and that is if a 1x1 hole, 12-inch by 12-inch hole is jackhammered into the asphalt to pothole a utility for whatever the purpose, whether it be for locating it for design or locating it for a proposed trenchless application. When that repair goes to be done, there was discussion about using a 2x2 milling machine to mill over that location and produce a 6-inch overlap, a T-top. And that produced a 3-inch depth mill and then hot patch on a 2x2, which allowed for a better compaction of that hole and a cleaner end product. Plus it was T-topped so that the asphalt lines didn't line up with the holes in the pothole. The type B pavement repair, the keyhole technology is still probably the most widely used and becoming more so just because of the end result and how nice it is. And the one thing that I need to do is I need to change this. Gordon, I didn't use the proper form you had given me where you had shallowed up that hole in the type A or the section AA cross section where the hole's drilled all the way through the coupon. I used the wrong one there.
Yeah, I did notice that
Yeah.
you had put the notes and everything on an earlier
Yeah.
graph, so I can transfer the things that you've put here.
Okay.
Yeah,
I apologize about that. I just now recognize that I had grabbed the wrong one. I had too many of those to pick from. But Craig, in a nutshell, and for the committee, that's the overview of what came out of the working group.
Real quick, Arvid, up on the notes for temporary potholes, number 3. I know the answer to the question, but I want to say it anyways. You know, it says a minimum of 4 inches of cold patch. You can use hot mix if you have it. Is that correct?
Correct. And the cold patch, of course, is a mixed feeling statement, and it needs to be, I think, discussed a little bit as to what you all want to have there. Keeping in mind, though, that it is temporary. And so when it is a temporary application, let's say, and again, I think the best way is to frame what temporary is. Temporary would be in an application where there's going to be a crossing of a major road, and in order to cross that road with a trenchless application, whether it be auger boring, pipe ramming, hand tunneling, pipe jacking, directional drilling, every utility that's crossed needs to be potholed and verified before the operation begins. And then every utility is supposed to visibly be looked at as you're physically crossing it. So in between the opening and the closing and the opening and the closing of those holes, typically the procedure would be to just backfill with native, compact, and then use cold patch to just patch that hole and keep it up, since you're out there on site every day anyway. And so the temporary, when I really started trying to figure out how to best frame it for the committee, is temporary is that it's being used consistently over the course of a couple days or a couple weeks for the purpose of completing a project. Temporary is not, oh, we're going to fix it in 6 months. It's just for the duration of a short-term project. It might be a 6-week project, but it's still being used if it's a trenchless application. There's very little use for a temporary hole if it's not for construction. And that's where I think the committee should think about framing it somehow that way.
Well, that's kind of where I was going, is we're talking minimum 4 inches of cold patch. We're getting kind of specific. What about a minimum 4 inches of patch material? I mean,
Sure.
in that case, it could be concrete, it could be cold patch, it could be hot patch, it could be grout, just something to seal up the surface. Again, to your point, because we're going to come through and we're going to open it up again before we actually do the permanent repair, or before we consume that hole with our excavation.
Exactly, spot on. That's really the only two ways that a temporary should ever be considered, is if it's going to eventually be a permanent backfill, or it's going to be consumed in an open cut application. Correct.
Right. So I'm just thinking, instead of saying cold patch, we just use a patch material, because like you said, in between the open and close and open and close phase, it really honestly doesn't matter what it is, right? We just need to seal off the hole.
No, it doesn't matter. It just needs to be, capable of withstanding traffic usage depending on where it's at. And again, that's going to drive the temporary use. In our little world, we've used anything from Home Depot cold patch, because the temporary was in a non-traffic area, all the way to using aqua patch every time, because we needed to make sure that it held up due to the traffic load just in a 24-hour period.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's going to be truly the responsibility of the contractor to put something in there that's going to withstand the wear and tear of traffic, depending on its application or where it's at.
Right. Okay.
And guys, didn't we want to exclude the small plates? I think we need to put that on there.
Okay.
In the temporary pothole notes area, there's just, I don't know what you want to call it. The mini plates or whatever are not allowed.
Okay.
So let me just ask another question, Arvid. On a major road, is that something typically that you have seen is plating, or is it to the extent of they're going to make a temporary hole for a day, and at the end of the day, they're going to patch it?
So it's been many, many years, but I have not seen the use of a pothole plate, a 2x2 pothole plate, in many years, because of the liability of those coming out. What I have seen is a 6x6 or a 6x8 mill, and mill down and a plate dropped in over a pothole, as opposed to closing it and opening it consistently, because it might be a utility that they're going to be crossing it multiple times. In a trenchless HDD application, you might cross a utility 12 times during the pilot bore, the remount, the pullback. And again, technically, you're supposed to open that utility every time that cutting head or that reamer crosses that utility. In a other style of trenchless, a pipe ramming, an auger boring, or hand tunneling, you're only going to pothole it and find it once to verify its location, and then you're going to open it up whenever you cross it again. but then you're never going to really open it again. So in those applications, it's typically just backfilled and sucked back out for that short of a duration. But the plating that is used is typically a 6x8 minimum. But I have not seen a pothole plate used in many years, just again due to the liability of them on the roadway.
So Jim, I think to your point, it's probably something that we could, I guess the question is it something you want to put in there to say that plates are not allowed, or is that kind of what you're looking at?
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm on board with that. I agree. Because it becomes a pretty large liability in the event if it's a small plate. And then we start getting into too many details and too much language on a detail talking about how big of a plate, and this detail is not for plating, it's for a pothole. So yeah. I think if we just say no plates, depending on how the committee thinks, I'm on board with that.
Okay, so we'll add item 5 that pothole plates, or we'll just put steel plates. Do you want to put steel plates must receive agency approval prior to use, or do you just take them out?
I would just take them out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Steel plates will not be allowed.
Perfect.
Temporary potholes.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, because the problem is if you provide the option, and sometimes contractors will say, well, we forgot to ask, some of them have that mentality, ask for forgiveness instead of permissions.
Right.
What if we just refer to the plating detail 202 or 200 or whatever it is? So if they use plates, they're using a detail that we already have made for plates. Just a question.
Well, the plates are usually for like bore pits or larger holes. I just don't think a plate is applicable for potholes.
And it sounds like it's consistently right now not even used by companies either. So I'm not sure we want to even.
I would say it's not used as frequently. It is used, but when it's used, it's typically a larger milled in plate to ensure that it won't pop out. And it's not going to be typically used in any major high speed traffic areas, because even then the risk of it coming out is great, and it becomes problematic.
Okay. And maybe we could work on the language in the working group and find out exactly what we're going to put in there.
Yeah, and I'd like to add on note 5 there on type A about the option of milling, doing a milling to overlap the 1x1 as another option to repair.
Okay, under the type A.
Yeah, and you can either create a separate note or add it to the note number 5 that you added. Say repair all cracks or saw cut overruns per mag 337. Or we could say or do an overlap mill for the surface core or something like that.
Or 6-inch minimum T-top.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say T-top. I just say overlap per. Overlap offset joint per detail 200-1.
Okay. Okay, I got that in already.
All right, cool.
So
that's all I had. I mean, like this to the rest of the committee. Yeah, we had vetted the option of going with another detail 213 as a temporary, and it got to be, we're going to end up stuck with too many temporaries out there and nobody's going to come back. So I think it's better to leave 212 and just add in the option for a temporary situation, or it'll be a temporary pothole. So.
Right.
The only other thing maybe we can discuss, we can do that with the working group too, is that temporary potholes must be permanently repaired with type A or type B. I know we talked about, time frames are difficult to assign to this, but I don't know if there's any other way we could put some kind of a termination time on this. But I think, Arvid, you mentioned something about when the project is complete. So maybe we can add that in there.
Okay.
I think that would be good. So we don't have a time frame. Let's just say add to 4 there on your temporary potholes. Temporary potholes must be permanently repaired with type A or type B as listed below by end of by the time the project is complete,
Okay, got it.
something like that.
Okay.
That way, it's like you mentioned, and we don't have to put any timeframes on it. So
Right.
that's all I had, guys. It's good.
Yeah. We appreciate it, Arvid. A lot of hard work there, and it sounds like we're almost to the finish line.
So with regards to the steel plates, just to be very clear, I'm just going to say steel plates are not allowed for temporary potholes.
Right.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think we're good there.
One item, just need to know, you have two section AAs. Probably one should be AA, the other should be BB or something like that.
Yes, I was going to ask that at the very end about Gordon's opinion on that. I agree with you. I think that should be BB.
Yeah.
Type B repair. Okay.
Yeah, do BB on the plan view and section view for the type B.
There you go.
I've changed that. The only thing that I don't have, Gordon, is I don't have a clean copy of the Mag 212 with the drill hole filled up. I'll leave that up to you to move over. Is that okay?
Yeah, I've got an updated CAD drawing
Okay.
that I can take your notes and put on.
Okay, good. I don't have CAD, unfortunately.
Yeah,
so that's good.
rather than doing more changes to a PDF version.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
One last comment, guys, on the plan view for BB, where we have, it's a round diameter, where we have the call outs for 18 to 24 in two places, probably only need it once, right? Or call it out as a diameter.
Yeah, the larger 10 by 18 was to suggest changing it to 10 by 18, and so where it says 18 by 24, it will go to 10 by 18.
In both places, where you have two call outs.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I see what you're saying, Gordon. Yeah, I honestly skipped over that. You're correct. We only need it in one spot. Yes.
Okay.
I agree. Yeah, because it's just a circle. Agreed.
So, any other comments, questions?
Hey, I have a question on the section view. It shows that there's two different material for the final restoration. How often do they use two different materials? Material for from section 601 and either AB or the half sack. My experience is they only use half sack.
I would say by far, just in my world, the only time we use native is when it's going to be a temporary, that's going to be eventually permanent, or it's going to be a temporary that's consumed, or it's out of a roadway. Anytime it's under pavement or under sidewalk, we always use slurry. But AB would be the only other material that would be used. And it would be used in applications where there's a potential comeback and need to reopen that hole. You don't want to slurry a hole that you might eventually have to reopen because now you have to make a new hole because you can't go down through the slurry.
You see the two material I'm talking about is the 6 inches above the height of the existing utilities. That's one material, and above that you're putting a half sack, and above that you're putting the asphalt, right?
Yes, correct.
So the two material I'm talking about is below the asphalt. How often do they do two materials?
Yeah, it's on the left there where it's crossed out. They'll either use AB per section 702 or they'll use half sack. The sand, we always put sand back in a pothole before we put in the AB or the slurry, because most utility owners want to have a sand buffer, about 6-inch sand buffer to ensure that their utility is protected.
Yeah, so that's for the above. I'm talking about the one on the right side where it says material to conform to section 601. Because those are two different materials, right? Or am I looking at this wrong?
Well, I see what you're saying now. That material to conform to 601. I don't know specifically what 601 is. I'm just saying to you that when we pothole down on an existing utility and we find it, if it's a gas line, it's historically got sand completely around it. If it's a water line or a clay sewer line or a duct bank, we typically will pour sand back into that hole before we start the backfill of the pothole, just to provide a buffer. It's not necessarily 601 because it's just bags of sand that we buy in bulk.
So does that need to be clarified? Or the way it's written is good?
We can change it to 6 inches of sand if you want to just call it that way. That makes it a lot easier. It clears it up.
Arvid, we could also look at changing it to material to conform to utility owner requirements.
That's fine too. Yeah, whatever you guys want. That'll work also.
Because then we're covered on, doesn't matter which utility it is, wet, dry, whatever. Then we're covered. If it's a city utility, then you per the city standards. If it's a Cox, gas, APS, SRP, then we're covered that way as well.
Okay, I've typed that in. I've changed that. Material to conform to utility owner requirements. That works.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, because 601 covers a lot. I mean, it's everything in this kitchen.
It's better to keep it on something like this, especially with this specific detail, with the growth and demand for utility potholing, for construction, for design. It's important that we keep it very simple and easy for people to replicate, in my opinion, across the county, so that it's just everyone follow the same thing, because it makes it easier and it's going to make it more affordable if it's consistently the same.
And even to that point, even outside of the county, because there's other municipalities that use MAG that are outside of Maricopa County.
Correct. Yes.
So, no, this is good. This is, I agree with you, Arvid. This is something that I think is going to be used a lot as time goes by, because we're seeing more and more HDD and underground excavation.
Yeah, and again, I just want to say this, and I don't want to drag it out, but trenchless technology as a whole, the whole umbrella of trenchless with all 13 methods, every method has to use, if there's an existing utility that it's crossing perpendicular or parallel within 5 feet, you need to pothole it and find it to verify it is where it is before you even mobilize the trenchless application. Because case in point, we did a 72-inch tunnel down in Tucson, and the agency elected not to pothole a box culvert and find the bottom of it. They went off as-built as to what the thickness of the foundation was, and we got 35 feet into the tunnel, and we ran into 3 foot of concrete because the foundation of the box culvert ended up being 4 foot thicker than what they thought it was. And so now you're into a tunnel alignment. So now we ended up spending a month chipping up concrete as opposed to just potholing it from the beginning and then moving the bore down appropriately. So it is a huge money savings. And the last Purdue report was for every dollar spent on pre-designed potholing and potholing period saves $7.42 on the construction side of it. So it is critical that it be utilized and be given the opportunity to be utilized properly.
Mm-hmm. So,
okay, Gordon, I'll save this, what I've got, and then send it to you and let you do your magic.
Yeah, I think the easiest thing would be to add whatever notes that you've taken.
I did.
PDF, and then I'll make the final corrections in CAD, and
Yeah,
we should have it ready.
We'll look at it. We'll look at it in the working group and give it a once more over.
So, all right. Well, excellent work. Thank you, Arvid.
My pleasure.
Moving on to item number 8, case 2104, updating detail 422-1, new detail 422-2, the frame and cover adjustments. Warren?
Thanks, Craig. Nothing new in this update other than changing the revised date for getting it ready for the final update or final approval, I should say. So I know we touched on this a little bit in the working group and didn't have any comments or changes at that time. I guess I'll open it up to the group to see if anyone's had a chance to review it or get have any comments from their agency.
Yeah, no, we haven't had anything out here. We've had a couple of presentations from each of the manufacturers on these, so.
Good.
Hey, Warren.
Hey, Ryan.
We just had one comment here at the city. The type B ring there called corrosion protective rings. My group reviewing it suggested just renaming that to corrosion resistant rings.
Can do that.
But other than that, they liked the detail and supported it.
Sounds good. Yeah, if everyone likes resistant better, that's fine with me. Resistive or resistant?
Resistant.
Okay.
See, this is Roy. It looks like there might be other, that same term used on some of the other notes as well.
Yeah, like note number 7. Oh, yeah, you know, that's a good one to bring up, Roy. I think if we look at section 626, we were using that same term, protective, corrosion protective coating.
So to clarify, that note 6 is basically the cone section, the concrete structure below the rings. Is that correct?
Correct.
Because obviously we're not going to put a coating on a corrosion resistant ring.
Yeah, the purpose of that note number 7 is for instances where they've had to add mortar, additional mortar, maybe to smooth or level a rough cone or do repairs. If there's any exposed mortar because of that needed to be repaired, then or recoated, then that note number 7 would take care of that. Going back, back to Roy, your point about the other notes. Was there any other place other than for changing out the protective that you saw?
No, that was all I saw. Just looking at it real quick was that note number 7. That was it. So.
Okay. We can change it here, but as I was saying, if we look at section 626, I think we used protective there. So that's my only hesitation.
Right. That's correct. In note 7, I'd leave it alone since that's the title of section 626.
Okay.
And I'm fine with that.
All right. Then we'll change it for type B then.
All right. So if that's going to be the only change, Warren, do you want to potentially put this up for a vote next month, or you want to go one more round?
We can actually do it this time if you'd like with that change.
It is on the agenda for possible action today, so
okay.
As long as that was part of the motion, that would be fine, I think.
If you want to go for action, Warren, we can definitely do that.
Okay, let's put it up for a vote with that change to the type B, changing protective to resistant.
Okay. I would motion to vote on it. Any seconds?
I second that.
Okay.
I think since you're chair, we'll need to have Warren make the motion.
Okay.
I will motion then.
There we go.
I'll still second the motion.
All right, Gordon, if you could throw up the roll call.
Sure. Back to that.
Okay. Again, this is for case 2104, updating detail 422-1 and detail 422 or to detail 422-2. Avondale,
Yes.
Buckeye is a yes. Chandler,
Yes.
El Mirage, present. Gilbert,
Yes.
Glendale,
Yes.
Goodyear,
Yes.
Maricopa County.
Yes, I think it's a proper change.
Okay, Mesa,
Yes.
Peoria,
Yes.
Phoenix.
Al Smolko, yes.
Thank you. Scottsdale,
Yes.
Surprise,
Yes.
Tempe,
Yes.
and Youngtown, not present. So case 2104, detail 422 has passed. Thank you, Warren.
You're welcome.
Yes,
All right.
and Warren, if you could send me the final CAD drawings, once you've got that final change done, I'd appreciate it.
Will do.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Moving on to item number 9. Case 2105, the proposed details 529-1 and 529-2. It's the curb opening catch basin detail. Used to be the City of Phoenix, actually still is the City of Phoenix detail, 1569 into the MAG standard details. So if you can pull that up, Gordon. So I did have some comments from Maricopa County on clearly calling out reinforcements. I noticed also there in section AA, it's calling for a clearance for all reinforcement, but it's not specifying the dimension. So the 529-2 actually shows a dimension, so it's 1.5 inches clear. Maricopa County asked for some discussion on the wall thickness in the lower right corner of the detail. He was talking about the detail size and maybe changing the size of the detail to kind of make it maybe a little larger, I think is the way he was talking about it. And some of the reinforcement in section BB, he would like that to match the reinforcement that's shown in the plan view. So one other thing that I did notice, I don't know if you can zoom into it, Gordon, section AA in the lower left. I'd like to kind of throw it out to the group. I've asked pretty much everybody in our departments. You see that 4-inch dimension there? I have no idea what that is for. And I've gone back in details over the past number of years, and that's been there, and I don't know why it's there. So if anybody can shed some light onto why it's there, I'd like to put a note to it or something. Otherwise, I'm thinking about removing it.
I don't pretend to have the answer, but it sure looks like it lines up with the overlap there at the top in the sidewalk area with the yeah, what is, I'm not even sure what that is.
The ring and cover up on top?
The ring and cover.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I originally looked at it thinking, okay, maybe that they were showing that they were going to pour the bottom of the catch basin first, and that's a piece of steel that ties the walls and the bottom together. My inspectors kind of laughed at me and said nobody has ever done that. But yeah, I'm going to throw it out. I don't know why it's there. I don't have the answer. So if anybody can maybe shed some light. So, and it could be with the alignment of the ring and cover.
Do you know what this hidden line is supposed to be showing here?
Yeah, what that is if the dowel bar that's right there to the lower right, that's the dowel bar that connects the walls to the deck. That's shown on the plan view in 4 different locations. I believe that's what that's identifying.
Maybe that's what this dimension is also trying to show.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think it's trying to show that, but I think the horizontal line there is there by mistake. I think they were supposed to show that dimension. They didn't show it upward, but they show it on the lower part of the.
Maybe it should be up
Part
here.
of it instead. Yeah, they didn't show it upward, they showed it downwards. But the other horizontal line, I think it's just a copy of that other line, which they didn't take off. It looks like.
Right. So maybe what they're saying is we actually got an inch clear of the end of the dowel bar on the deck where it connects to the walls. Is that what we're kind of talking about?
Yeah. That's what I
Okay.
think.
I wonder, yeah, because that the dowel bar at the top where it connects the deck and the walls, that actually goes all the way to the face of the concrete. Maybe what I'll do is I'll trim that back a little bit and see if I can't show it.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. But see if I can't show it with a little bit of space in between the end of the dowel bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to look at it and see how I can do it. But yeah, we looked at that for a while and we couldn't come up with the answer. But that very possibly could be it. So if there's any other ideas out there, I'm open, completely open to any suggestions. But I'm thinking that maybe that's exactly what that is it's just an offset for that dowel bar.
Hey, Gordon, could you scroll or pan to the right? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so that's showing the dowel bar how it's connecting the deck with the walls. And I guess kind of in that upper right corner of section BB is similar to that other section AA where it's showing the dowel bar. Yeah, right there. Well, actually, it's the vertical piece where the dowel bar would be. Yeah, right there.
One or over here.
Just to the right. It would be basically to the right of those 4 horizontal bars.
So that's right here.
That piece right there, yeah. So
from here to here is maybe 4 inches.
That's what I'm thinking, because the hook on that dowel bar is 3 inches, which gives you a 1 inch clearance from the inside of that structure wall. Which on a non-earth retaining side, 1 inch is probably adequate. So, but anyway, so these are the comments that McDOT came up with. I wanted to bring them up in the meeting today to kind of see if anybody had any thoughts on it. Yeah, if you can go back to full screen there.
Craig, I've got some questions or thoughts on the thickness, the wall thickness. Okay. The note says need discussion on wall thickness. Is there a concern that those wall thicknesses are not working for the depths, or what was that based on? Can you talk in more detail on that?
Yeah, the comment that McDOT gave is instead of just going to basing it on a height of the structure, 4 feet or less, it being 6 inches, or 4 feet or more, it being 8 inches, just calling it 8 inches total. I don't have a preference, but I do know that it could be a cost savings. I mean, not much, mind you, but could be a cost savings if you are 4 feet or less.
Now, help me out on that also, because I'm looking at that same table there, and it says V equals 4 foot 0 inches minimum, unless otherwise noted. So that first thickness, T equals 6 inches if V equals 4 feet or less. So, I mean, are we building? I guess that accounts for 4 foot exactly catch basins, right? And that's pretty much the only condition, unless you're specially designing a catch basin to be less than 4 foot in depth.
And that might exactly be what the county was talking about.
So I'm interested in thoughts on that, but also I'm quite curious. It seems like we have catch basins that exceed 8 feet pretty frequently. Would there be interest in adding depths up to 10 feet or something like that? Are there catch basins that get built frequently enough with depths greater than 8 feet to have some type of a standard associated with that, or do we want to leave it as special design required? And I guess how often are people actually doing a special design on catch basins over 8 feet in depth?
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking right now, not I I don't couldn't tell you the last time I had an 8-foot deep catch basin. That's a good point though. So what if we do have a 9-foot deep catch basin, and what's our wall thickness? Or would it be similar to some of the other details if the field conditions exceed the requirements on the detail, then it's like, okay, nope, it's going to have to be specially designed.
Yeah, I think that's what it's saying is if it's over 8 feet in depth, then the engineer is responsible for designing it, and that may be an appropriate thing. I guess my question is if catch basins come up frequently enough between say 8 foot and 10 foot, or 8 foot and 12 feet, or something like that, if that happens frequently enough that it's worth trying to come up with a standard design so that we're not having to go out and do special designs on all these catch basins. I guess you're saying you don't see them over 8 foot in depth that often. I'm interested in if other cities have had catch basins with those depths or not.
Can I just pop in real quick on that? Just from spending many years cleaning these things and potholing around them and all that and working around them. Typically, we don't see them over. I haven't seen them over 8, because if they need to, whatever reason, drain, they'll just angle the output pipe down to the main at a steeper angle. So I haven't seen these typically much over 8. Even then, it's sometimes only 6.
Thank you for the feedback.
That's just what I've seen in the field, for the last couple of decades. That's all.
Yeah, that's true. Because I had discussions with a contractor cleaning our catch basins, and they even said, we don't want they don't like deep ones. They're hard to clean. No. So it's not something you want to build frequently.
Hey, Craig, this is Warren.
Warren.
For that note 8, how about instead of adding it as a note 8, we just add the update the title. So curb opening catch basin with 3 to 17 foot wing with attached sidewalk, or the other one, retitle it no sidewalk, something like that. Then it'll be real clear what the differences are in those details.
Gordon, can you go to the -2 detail? So let's see. Yeah, I think we could. There's some details on the -1 that go to the -2, but the -2 basically is just saying that this is a catch basin in an area that does not have sidewalks. So yeah, I think we could change the name.
And likewise on -1, where we talk about sidewalk, where you're looking at section AA, where it's 5 foot asterisk sidewalk, we may have instances where there's different sidewalk widths, like 6 foot or more, right? So maybe we think about sidewalk width per plan. I don't know, but I know we use catch basins on arterials too, and different widths of sidewalk.
So you're talking in section AA, right?
Uh-huh.
I guess even in the
plan view too, where we have the 5 foot width on the sidewalk, but that's not always a 5 foot sidewalk. It could be on a collector, it could be different on different roadways, right?
So what I've seen before is even in just the construction sequencing, the catch basin is going to go in before the sidewalk. And the sidewalk typically is then poured around the catch basin with an expansion joint. So I think what the detail is showing is it's a 5 foot dimension for the structure. If you're going to have a larger sidewalk, So I'm sitting here talking about this and thinking about it at the same time. So
I hear what you're
if
saying.
we're
So
gonna have a larger sidewalk, then I'm thinking about the reinforcing also, because if you look at the plan reinforcing, we go all the way out basically to the edge of the sidewalk. So if we extend it to 6 feet, 7 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet, are we going to have to extend the reinforcing?
It does also have that footnote or that asterisk that goes to the footnote under the table that says for 4 foot in locations where 4 foot sidewalk is required. So it sounds like it's trying to match. Normally you'd match a 5 foot. If you have a 4 foot, match that. If you have something bigger than that, then that's your question. Do you match it or do you just build around it?
yeah,
Yeah, typically, like I said, typically what I've seen there is we build the structure with the deck, and then we match the sidewalk around it. We just extend basically the sidewalk. I don't know if anybody's seen anything different or if they have any other thoughts. But yeah, well, I would just get concerned if we go to a 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot. Now we're starting to chase reinforcing, for sidewalk.
I hear what you're saying. I don't think we want to make it bigger just for a.
And if you have a 6 foot sidewalk instead of 5 foot, would it look strange to have a 1 foot strip?
Then a 1 foot, right?
Well, but it would make sense if you're going to be building it to the ultimate sidewalk width per plan, then you'd want to build it so you wouldn't have the seam.
And that's a good point. We could say instead of 5 foot dimension there, width to match adjacent sidewalk.
I think you leave it as it is, and if it's a sidewalk that's wider than 5 feet, then it's up to the municipality to put the sidewalk and the details in. This is just for the catch basin.
And that's a good point as well.
I agree. It's been like this for a long time. So
Yeah, and sometimes they have different contractors. One contractor will do the catch basin, another one's going to do the sidewalk later. So
right. So okay. Well, actually, I think what I'll do is I'll make the changes to the wall thickness, based on our discussion today. Because yeah, I think we're right. If we've got a minimum 4 feet, unless otherwise noted, if we could just make the walls 8 inches thick, then there's no questions. It's just trying to simplify things. And I guess kind of honestly, how I've seen catch basins built, contractors don't pay attention to the outside dimension. They form the inside and they pour up against native. So I've had some walls 8 to 12 inches thick. Anyways, thoughts? Any other thoughts?
Craig, this is Warren. Just one last comment on note number 7, where it says access frame and cover per mag standard detail. We can drop the mag standard and just say per detail 536-2.
Okay, I'm sorry, say it again. Frame and cover per.
Note 7 can just say frame and cover per detail 536-2.
536-2. Okay, that makes sense because we're already in mag. Okay, no, that's definitely doable.
Greg, this is Roy. I just had a comment on the second page, that 529-2. We're just looking at the City of Phoenix detail, and it looks like that one isn't just without a sidewalk, but there also looks like the back wall of the catch basin is also recessed, so the top of the frame is actually exposed for any kind of landscaping or whatever that you've got back there.
Yeah, if you actually look at the plan view on the same detail on the upper left-hand corner of this, the framing cover is actually blocked in. So it's not just laying in the landscape area. It's blocked in and around it. But yes, it is depressed. It's the concrete itself is dropped down.
Hey, Craig, it's Robert Avondale.
What do you got, Rob?
Yeah, I do had I don't know if this is the place to put in the detail. I have come across a situation in the field before where the pipe is short of the catch basin. Sometimes it's 3 or 4 inches short. Sometimes it's 6, 8 inches short. You know, I've just, as a rule, just usually have them put some rebar hoops around the sonotube.
You're talking on down the -1 detail?
Yeah, I can't really see it too well from my screen. But I just know in catch basin in general, I've had that issue in the past. And I don't know if that's the place to address it in detail or not, but.
So that would be right there in the section AA section, in the lower left-hand lower corner.
Yeah, that might be a place to have it. I don't know if there's a note saying that or not. I can't see real close from here, but.
Yeah, I think, and we need to specify a maximum gap too. I mean, if it's 1 foot short, then they need to, go in and redo the pipe because obviously there's a mistake there. So.
Again, I think is that something we want to put on a detail, or is that something that actually needs to be in a specification? That's more of a pipe lane specification as opposed to a catch basin detail, wouldn't it be?
It's possible, yeah.
It could be a spec. Just one of those things. It seems like it happens a lot, and then one's pointing fingers, and then of course, they're sitting there trying to form for the catch basin, and then it seems like it's always kind of a field fix, something that I learned years ago. But I just don't remember seeing anything in MAG that's definitive on, what we should allow and how much they should not be able to do it at all.
Right.
I always feel like it's just a field fix, and I just don't know. I mean, I think it'd be better to have everyone kind of chime in on it and see what makes sense, so we're kind of consistent.
Maybe what we can do is we could put a note down with in the lower right hand corner with the other notes, and come up with some language in the working group as to what, maybe a minimum dimension, anything outside of X feet or X inches. Either new pipe needs to be laid, or a concrete collar per mag detail needs to be installed. Something, I'm not sure what it would be.
Yeah, concrete collar might be a good way to go.
So yeah, let's discuss that in the working group. But yeah, I do see what you're saying, and yes, I've run across that quite a few times. The challenge that I see down in the valley here is everybody uses RGRCP. So
yeah,
if they install it a foot extra too long, then they just cut it off, and it's still challenging. Up north, everything is HDPE and CMP, so it makes it a little easier to cut it. But anyways, no, definitely we can bring it up in the working group, and that's something that absolutely I agree with you. I've run across it as well.
Yeah, when they cut the pipe, it may be more work for the contractor, but I just feel like we get a better product that way.
Mm-hmm.
In the end.
Yeah.
Got more faith in the pipe than I do with rebar hoops and sonotube.
Yeah, and a lot of times I've seen that front wall, instead of being say 8 inches thick, again, it's 12 inches thick because they had to, they were 4 inches shy on their pipe.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing is when you have a certain length of pipe, you can't cut a 6-inch piece or a 1 foot piece and plug it into a ring tight bell and then pour against the catch basin. That don't work that good.
Right. And that's where the concrete collar would come in, is throw a piece of sonotube in there, throw a concrete collar around it. And
I think if you put a concrete collar note right there, you'd solve every problem.
So, all right. Well, yeah, let's definitely bring it up and see if we can come up with some language and some details on this, and see if we can't solve a few problems.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah,
Thank you, Rob.
Sure.
Any other comments on this? I do appreciate it. These are, again, this is something that has been around for a long time, and I think everybody's probably built them. And we've all just made some workarounds and just made it work. But if we can improve it, then I'm all for that. So, all right, not hearing anything. If we can move on here to item number 10, case 2106, proposed new detail 272. It's the retrofit manhole and valve box curb. Warren? Are you out there, Warren?
He did say that he would have to leave early today, so.
Yeah.
I did receive this detail from him this morning, and I think the change was updating this note about the watertight frame.
Okay, and that was one of the things we discussed in the working group is, if you're going to be up against a curb and gutter, that's where you're actually going to have water, unless you're at the high point, which would be the single curb at the top. But did we have, no, we did not have this up for action. So we can have everybody look at it one more time and see if they have any comments. But not hearing any right now. Moving on to item number 11, case 2107, adding information for thermoplastic pipe. Jim, I know you've been working on this with the concrete guys.
Yeah, I have. So I think we got the latest one up here. We had to add a definition, so we kind of did a little revision on the definition. And then
one thing,
definition for deflection. So.
Yeah, he sent me this new one. And he also had some changes in the text here. I know in the working group, he brought up the issue of this if any text is kind of a weasel words, so
right.
I wanted to remove that and then add that any remedy is performed as required by the agency.
Right.
He also thought the correct word was not the average, but the mean inside diameter.
Okay.
Not correct. So I think that was it.
Yeah, I think those same things are duplicated on this section as well.
So.
Any questions from anybody?
I have a question. What's the difference using thermoplastic pipe or just plastic pipe? What's the difference?
Well, the plastic kind of falls under the umbrella of thermoplastic.
Yeah, we kind of skipped over that definition, but we added this definition for thermoplastic.
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Okay. All right.
And kind of the intent and thought behind that was we are getting into so many different materials in terms of pipe types that instead of trying to specify HDPE, polypropylene, PVC, SRPE, we just kind of come up with a general thermoplastic, which they all fall under in terms of the trench type, because once you start talking trench type, then it's different than a rigid pipe. So that's kind of where the thought came up.
Okay, because elsewhere I had read, I don't remember the section right now, it was about the three kinds of pipe, the flexible, the metal, no, flexible and rigid, and the plastics and the metals fall under the flexible, and the rigid is under the concrete, and maybe the clay and other ones. So I
Yeah.
just add must in thermoplastic because I was doing something for McDowell we're dabbling with coming up with some pipe selection methodology. And so we've been talking about plastic pipes and then either metal or concrete. So I'm just trying to see now. I know there are other uses of pipes here beyond just the drainage, and that's perhaps where thermoplastic has a wider range. So I was just asking from curiosity what's going on here.
Yeah, a number of years ago, we actually broke the standard into two pieces, into a flexible conduit and a rigid conduit. And that was where we threw the plastic pipes, or the thermoplastic pipes for this case, into the flexible conduit, and the rigid conduit, which is the concrete, clay and whatnot, into the rigid section. And this is just further defining what the thermoplastic is and the flexible conduit.
Is this pertaining to drainage, or if you don't mind, to what other applications of thermoplastic?
Yeah, I've seen water lines that are in HDPE, sewer lines that are in HDPE. Water lines are PVC. I've seen storm drain PVC. I think sometimes you can use pretty much, I don't want to say anything, but there's various applications you can use for the various types of pipe.
There's also the fusible thermoplastic HDPE PVC that's becoming more and more common because it allows for long trenchless applications without the concern of a joint ever failing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the issues was that in these testing specs, it only referenced HDPE and PVC. And since there are these other ones, then they weren't required to be tested for deflection because they weren't listed. So
right.
Thermoplastic term is to try and group all of them, so all of them are playing by the same rules as far as the testing.
Right.
Yeah, that was the onus, actually. You're right, Gordon.
Right. And that's where the different thermoplastic pipes fall under the flexible conduit specs. So,
and the iron pipe, for example, may be considered flexible, but it doesn't have the same kind of deflection as the plastic pipe, so not really included here.
Correct. So
yeah, ductile iron is a lot different than say CMP pipes.
Right.
They're both a metal.
So
any other questions?
No, not from me. I think we shall adopt that. We shall adopt the thermoplastic terminology there.
All right, thank you.
So
if we don't have any more discussion, then Gordon, I'd like to see if we can maybe vote on this next month.
yeah, that sounds good. So
maybe we'll go through one more cycle on the working group. So if anybody has anything they want to come up with or add to it, let me know for the working group meeting. It'll be later this month on the 18th.
So, all right. Not hearing anything. Let's move on to case number 12, or item number 12, case number 2108. The proposed new curb cut details, details 226, 1 and 2. Alan, City Phoenix.
Hey, Craig, I have to go now. I'm going to pass this all over to Keith. So he's on the phone, I hope. So he'll take over from now, and I'll catch you guys next month.
All righty.
All right. Thanks, Alan. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's see. From our last meeting, I've made 3 changes, 2 from this committee and 1 from the work group. For this committee, I had note number 3 that had to do with the standard detail 206-1 and attached sidewalks. It didn't make any sense the way I had it last time, so I've modified it for this group's recommendation that we're just going to use the detail with attached sidewalks. And then on page 2, the same note occurs, and on the isometric for type 3, I had an incorrect dimension there. So I've got that fixed. And yeah, because we had 8 was supposed to be on the inside on both, and then 6 on the outside on both. And then also I had some of my warp lines incorrect, and somebody in the work group pointed that out, so I've adjusted those. So those are the 3 changes that I've made since the last time you looked at this. So open to any questions.
The other thing that was included in the packet were some of the photos and other details from other agencies just as reference. So they're included in the packet.
Thanks, Gordon. I forgot to mention that. Appreciate your help.
Gordon, if you go back to the -2 detail, just real quick, Keith, type 3 in the isometric view. Oh, wait a second. Actually, in the type 3 plan view, now I understand why it's 13 inches wide, because it blows out in the backside. I was going to say, does the top of curb really 13 inches, but okay, I'm seeing it now.
Yeah, it took me a while to get that figured out too.
So I got you now. I'm on board with it. I see what the thought process is on. So, all right. I don't have any questions. Working on these outer right-of-way details, it's getting kind of nice. We can start getting that portion of it going. All right. Not hearing any other comments or questions, concerns. Moving on to item number 13, new and potential cases. Potential cases for 2021. Jim, you guys are still working on the water hauling requirements, right?
Yeah, I thought that maybe this was going to be presented this month. I guess I on the water hauling one. Is that something we could still present, Gordon, at this meeting?
I don't know if I have the latest update that you want to present, so.
Oh, okay.
We might need to wait on that one.
All right.
And the minimum testing frequencies, Rob, are you still on?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, we're going to meet again tomorrow for the subgroup, but it's coming along pretty good. We've kind of got it down to one table again. We went back and forth.
Did you want me to pull up the one that you just emailed this morning?
Sure. Yeah, if you don't mind. Yeah, we can handle some of the stuff, it looks like, with footnotes. But we've been meeting every couple of weeks virtually, and then just a lot of good back and forth discussions. Gotten a more of a concise table.
Let me see. Here it is.
And we basically have it for, water, sewer, storm, manholes. We did add dry utility PUE in there. I think we should have some testing of that.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've also got miscellaneous stuff below there, like water services and hydrants, utility crossings.
Yeah, I like the footnotes that we talked about in the working group about the pipe segments or the pipe runs. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I was kind of looking at MAG doesn't really have a general overall definition. I mean, I think people probably understand what a stub out is, what a lateral is, but I think it's good, yeah, to get tests on those.
Mm-hmm.
If I can interject real quick, one of the reasons I think it's really critical is because we have a project in the West Valley where the stub out to the north is 0.6 lower than the invert of the sewer.
Wow.
So we're going to have to tunnel in underneath the road and fix the problem for the developer. And it was stubbed out a couple of years ago during the road widening.
Was it a settlement issue? What was it?
it's hard to tell on the camera, but it appears that there was an extension of the 5-foot stub, and when they either backfilled it or settlement, but it fell, and it's obviously not workable. And so it's just, again, one of the truths that when you have mainline installed and then you have stubs being installed, it's so critical to make sure those stubs are, one, extended far enough, and two, that they receive the same attention, because what's the point of a stub if it's not going to be able to be used? And now you got to open cut the whole road just to get to the sewer.
Yeah, I mean, stub outs, that's the thing, is nobody tests them, I think, like, you know, between manhole to manhole, because it gets buried. So, you know, again, we're kind of digressing from what's on this table, but yeah.
I just wanted to say that just popped up literally just 2 weeks ago. We're trying to solve that problem now.
Yeah, laterals need to be tested while the other end is open, so to verify slope and all that stuff. So anyways.
And backfill process too, which is important as the main line.
Yeah. So yeah, it needs to be tested as well. So
yeah, those little loose ends that they get forgotten, and they seem like they're the cause a lot of problems down the road.
They're expensive. There's just no two ways about it. Now you've got a road that's been widened, utilities on top of it. It's 20 foot deep. How are you going to get to it and fix it without shutting down the entire road, doing some sort of an elaborate shoring system, or you come in and you tunnel underneath all that and you have to hit the manhole and start over.
Wow. Yeah.
Just a suggestion, and we'll talk about this tomorrow in the meeting, but I was just thinking I had another project up north where they were actually trenching with a trenching machine because it was solid limestone. And there was a few places where they didn't go deep enough. So to get back in there, they had to take a hoe ram and, you know, chip down 6 inches. So you can imagine how expensive that was. So what they end up doing is the contractor said, fine, you know, we're going to go 2 feet deeper and we're just going to bury our stinger and we're going to go 2 feet deeper. Well, what happened is when they backfilled it, they just hogged everything back in until the pipeline contractor came through, excavated it out, but they didn't excavate that 2 additional feet. So we had a number of pipe runs that had settled because that bottom 2 feet was just shoved in. I was thinking maybe a note on this, a footnote could be, you know, compaction all the way to the bottom of the trench. I'm not quite sure what language we would put in there. But
like the foundation, you mean? Like the bedding, the bottom 4 inches of
yeah, again, I think it might even be a very unique situation, so it wouldn't even work in a standard. But you know, maybe it's something we could talk about tomorrow. But yeah, this was something that we had that yeah, they excavated with the trencher an additional 2 feet, hogged everything back in, dug it out, put the bedding pipe, backfill, and so forth and so on. We got some good rain showers up there, and yeah, we had settlement all over.
Was it in a warranty at least?
It was, yeah. It was an expensive warranty.
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, something we definitely talk about tomorrow.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I think the table, I mean, I think we've gotten, there's still some stuff. I think there's room for discussion. I mean, just with the working group itself before the general, but hopefully Jim can present this as a case in June.
Yeah.
No, we will. We're far enough along. I think it's ready to go.
Yeah, I think we've got 90% of the work done. So
I think so too.
No, this is
I want all the agencies now to take it back to their appropriate staff and have them start looking at it. So
yeah, and we do have a good representation of, you know, quite a few cities in private labs also in the group, which is helping quite a bit. So
a lot of good.
Did you add a note on this about the deep backfills? We're going to do there, or are you still going to talk about it?
Yeah, I did. We kind of talked about it last time. I put a footnote on there for agency may require additional effort such as CLSM or full-time monitoring by geotechnicians. Just
there it is.
Put out there. I thought about putting just full-time monitoring, but we probably should state who, the engineer or something. And I just put 12 foot, deeper than 12 foot. It was kind of an arbitrary number. I don't know if we can require that in MAG, but I think it's, I don't know if anyone's doing that or not, but I think it's a good place to start. You know, we can at least make a note at the table and then go from there. If every agency wants to require that later, we could, or we could require it in MAG maybe one day.
Maybe you change, excuse me, maybe you change the language to say full-time monitoring as determined or as required by the agency.
Oh, sure. We could do that.
Yeah, because when we're getting these deep excavations, you know, nobody wants to go down there and test it. So I don't know. It comes down to more watching the method go in. That's a tough call.
Yeah, I believe it was McDOT about 3 weeks ago that had mentioned they had something they do where they have more monitoring of the deep fill because it's safer, and they have the labs try to monitor it, and then they take more tests for the shallower backfill, if I remember correctly. Who's here from McDOT? Is he still here?
Not hearing him.
Yeah.
Hey, one of my comments, you guys, and Rob, I got to tell you, you've done remarkable to take the chaos out of compaction and put it on a spreadsheet. It's amazing. But you know, when we do laterals, it's always a stub out of the manhole or 10 feet out of the manhole or 5 feet out of the manhole. Why don't we run that stub to the right of way? Then they'd be putting it in like a pipe, and it would be more testable and everything else instead of just a stub out that goes nowhere. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, I think that'd probably be more into the actual design as opposed to a standard detail or anything like that.
Yeah,
No,
we could put that in 615 though.
Yeah, that's kind of touching on design though.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah. I know in Buckeye we actually do that for we have a specific detail for stub outs for water, and for sewer we have what we call a testing clean out. So if it's a short enough stub, 5, 6, 8 feet, something like that, then we actually put a testing clean out. And what that will do is that will allow the contractor that installed the pipe, he actually can test it, and he's responsible for his work that he does. So when the next contractor comes through and connects to it, they're connecting to a piece of pipe that has been tested.
Yeah, are you guys leaving those in place?
They do stay in place until the next contractor comes through and pulls it off and connects to it. But yeah, we put a valve box over top of it so it's accessible, or a traffic rated box over it if it's in the roadway.
Okay. Yeah, I've been doing that here more too, and don't allow clean outs in the right of way, but we've been doing the temporary ones, knowing that it's going to be extended in the future by the next developer.
Right.
And it has helped because if you have a 30 or 40 foot section of pipe, it's hard to test that because you can't really backfill the whole thing. Right. And it's to get safe access to it.
Right. Yeah, and that's what this testing clean out does. It's actually an 8-inch pipe that comes to the surface. So you drop a plug down that basically vertical chimney to the pipe that's been installed, and you test it that way. So
yeah, you build a clean out and test it. Or how about we come up with the spec, we make manholes that are tappable, and we just go in and we bore them and we tap them when we get ready to do the work. We don't stub anything up. That's another thought. I think Arvin might like that one. All right, you gotta go, guys. It was nice seeing you.
All right, we'll see you, Paul.
Yeah, Paul. Yeah. No, I personally like the idea of more stub outs. And if you don't ever need them, you don't need them, but you have them there. But that's just, I don't know, it seems like it's easier than it is to come in and put one in later. I do like his idea about having one running all the way across the street.
Mm-hmm.
That way, for future, you don't have the traffic control issues. If you have a paved street, you just go behind the valley gutter, tie into the sewer lateral, and you just keep running from there.
Right.
The compaction is good up to that point.
Right. So.
Yeah, but the problem is they're putting them in too many in advance. You don't know where development's going to need them, and I can tell you, a lot of them we put in years ago aren't being used, or when the developer comes in, they just put a new one in. So
Yeah, we throw an incentive on our standards that if there's a stub there, then the developer's required to use it. If they choose not to use it, then they have to remove it, take it out, patch the AC, T-top it, remove the fitting in the main line. So it's a bit of an incentive.
there you go. So Rob, what was the reason why you got rid of? Didn't you have two tables, one for a native and one for AB? What was the reasoning again why you went back to one and you don't separate them?
Yeah, we did, and then kind of turned out what just made the most sense was just to keep the frequencies the same. 25% of services or every 500 feet testing or something for ABC and for native, and this made sense to kind of just say, well, let's test every foot of native or every 1 foot lift of native, and then every other 1 foot lift for ABC. So kind of as an incentive, we're doing less testing, but the frequency is the same.
Oh, that's listed in your footnote there.
Yeah, and that way, and it's just one footnote. It seemed like that was the main difference between the ABC and the native tables. It just kind of evolved that way because initially we were talking about maybe testing native every 250 feet or every 300 feet, and ABC every 500 feet or something. But it just kind of made sense just to keep the frequencies the same. And I think it'd be a little less confusing that way.
Yeah, true.
We do have quite a few footnotes. I don't know if there's a way to, almost didn't even want to put in the 12-inch lifts because that is already in section 601, but it's there for convenience. I mean, if we think there's too many footnotes, we can always combine them or take a couple of out or something. But it's a lot more concise than where it was 2 months ago, that's for sure.
Yeah, Rob.
Yeah, I guess the one thing too, why we got the attention of the main committee is that, is there any preference on how this table is presented? Do we want to put it in the actual spec section, or do we want to put it as an appendix? Is there any thoughts, opinions on that from the rest of the group?
Yeah, the way I'm seeing it is we've already got the one table in 601. I'm thinking about just adding it as a separate table. The 601 gives us the different criteria for the different compaction requirements. I'm thinking something similar to that. I mean, then we're consistent with what we've already got in the book. Don't know if anybody has any other thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, that's not bad because I had the discussion with the contractor about, appendixes. And the problem is some of these guys in the field, they have their office, because this stuff's online, they have their office just print out certain sections. And so they may not get the appendix, they just get the, the paper copy of the actual section without any other supporting documents. So some people are still old school in the field. So
one suggestion on that, we've been working on some similar specifications for other entities, and we've been putting this type of table or information within a quality control section of the specification for trench installation or installations. It would go along with any other testing requirements. The density table goes under compaction. The frequency table goes under quality control. And we saw some national standards doing a similar thing. So just a suggestion.
So.
All right. Well, thanks, Rob. You guys done a lot of good work on that.
Yes, you have. So. All right.
But yeah, I like this little, Gordon, I want to put this as a case, new case next month.
So anyways, thank you, Rob. Trying to get through this thing in time. Let's see if we can move on to the next item, extending clay length of clay pipe, from 1 foot to 2 foot at the manhole. I believe Phoenix is going to be, is it Phoenix that's going to be pitching this as a case?
Yes, that is correct. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Got the microphone fixed now, so you're ready to go.
All right. So yeah, I've actually talked to NCPI. Well, I have had some people from our group talk to NCPI, and I've invited them to the next working group to have them kind of provide their expertise on the flexible joint. I know that the the main criteria that they've got is that there's 2 points of flexibility within 36 inches of each connection. So if we go to 1 foot, 2 foot, or even out to 3 feet, depending upon the pipe size. The other thought that part of our crew was looking at, and I kind of throw this out, this isn't really pertaining to the length of pipe coming out, but the anti-flotation ring, or the extended bottom, I think is what we actually call it on this. Maybe removing that on the detail and just making a note on there that buoyancy calcs shall be provided. So that was a thought that our group kind of threw out there. So, but again, we're going to bring this to the working group, and NCPI will be present, and we can kind of discuss some of these options and these items. But it's something that Buckeye has noticed also. So, anything else on that one?
I have made this a case. So since he sent it to me before the meeting, he asked to make it an official case.
Okay.
So
okay.
It is in there, and it's got the 2 foot change here. One thing, if we do want to change it, we should update the drawing here as well to show the additional stub out.
Right. Right. And we'll talk about that in the working group. So, but yeah, that's definitely something that that's a challenge that we found out here on the west side too. So, but any other comments on that? Concerns, questions? Moving on. Sediment trap details. I'm not sure, Peter, is that?
Yeah. Yes. We're very close on that one. We're really just getting the cover letters, getting kind of a little bit organized. It's a bit new for some of our folks to be presenting it. Likely it's going to come through the city of Tempe, and we're anticipating the June meeting will be going ahead and doing the sediment trap, presenting the sediment trap case as it's been put together. The other cases, and I'll talk about a little bit more on the update. The vegetative rock bioswale detail is getting closer, or that's probably going to be more of a presentation in or case in, I'd say, July. It's probably going to push to then, but we're getting closer on that one. And then I might as well I'll jump into the landscaping details. We actually have, they're not details, I'm sorry, landscaping sections 425, 430, 440, 757, and 795. There are currently drafts of 3 of those ready to go. They're being reviewed by the committee members. We're expecting our last meeting at the end of the month. Our meeting at the end of the month will be the one we're going to get our last ones. We're looking at having those also ready for the July meeting, and having those 5 specification revisions. There's some of them very extensive, really modernizing the landscaping details section. There are also a number of details that are in the works. Right now, the subgroup is looking at potentially for irrigation upwards of 15 to 20 details that currently we don't even have in MAG to bring those available. That may not happen this year because of the time constraints. I think we're looking probably for next year on that. And then similar with landscaping details, they're looking at potentially up to 10 details there to modernize everything. Again, I'll talk a little bit more how we're going through that process, and that would be for next year.
Wow, thank you, Peter. You guys have really been working out there.
There's some hardworking people on these. I have to congratulate them.
That's really good news. So, thank you. Section 776 Grout and Mortar updates. We've got somebody to talk about what they've got going on for those.
Well, I can cover that and go right into the working group there, Craig.
Okay.
So the conversation about that is really just kind of updating some of the standards and then cleaning up some of the language and adding a couple things that's actually listed in the meeting notes from the working group. Kind of some flowability measurements and how that should be and what actually those ranges should be. That's kind of where that one's at. it was getting pretty close. I kind of expect Jeff to have a draft at the next working group where we can kind of take it from there.
Okay.
So I'll take that and run right into the working group if you're okay.
Sounds good.
I got a meeting
Sounds
here in
good.
a few minutes. If you guys are okay with that, it's okay if I jump you, Jim? Go first.
Yeah, go ahead.
So most of our conversation there was in regards to the minimum testing frequencies that was discussed here just a few minutes ago in the asphalt materials concrete working group as well. The section 776, the grout and mortar, and then we continued the discussion. And this is kind of an interesting one too, because how this one kind of gets handled could be a precursor to some other things. On the development side, City Phoenix talking about compaction and moisture testing at the time of, and there being complaints about, well, there's nobody available to come do it at the time. It was ready. It's the scheduling. Who's ultimately responsible is kind of where it came back to. I don't know that we've actually solidified who that should be at this point. The engineer of record usually for development, and between them and the contractor is kind of where the conversation was leaning, but we'll pick that up again at the next working group. And then Rob also brought up at the end, we were talking about some shrinkage cracks on some of the manholes being poured and what to do with that. How to address that situation. We talked about possibly adding in some language for curing, but I imagine that could potentially be something to add as a future case, maybe not quite this year. Our next meeting is May 20th. It'll be virtual again at noon.
Craig, I think you're muted.
I do it every time. Thank you, Gordon. Thank you, Greg. I think you're going to have time to make your meeting. So if we can move on to the water and sewer working group, Jim, do you update?
Not really. We met last month, discussed everything we pretty much talked about today. Our next meeting will be on May 18, 1:30.
Okay. I guess moving on, Peter, I know you kind of touched on some of this stuff.
Yeah, we had our meeting, and my apologies for not getting the minutes to you quicker, Gordon, but I think you've got copies for everybody. It's on the website. Again, we're getting great attendance. So a lot of the people now I'm starting to notice are showing up on these meetings too, and we're starting to get more focus on this. Keith went through talking about the curb cut details and asked for participation in getting the photos. I think we had really good efforts by people. We saw a number of those photos in the packet to kind of give you a real feel for it. One of the things we thought about was, and I think we're going to do this as we bring forward these cases on different things they haven't seen before, is to have photos to show you what they look like in addition to the case, to try to help the process along. So we're going to be looking for those as each of these cases move forward. Again, we talked about the case for the sediment traps, vegetated bioswales. Again, they're moving forward. The landscape and irrigation standards working group, sub-working group, continues to meet. I think they did a great job on getting those first three out. I think we're going to see in the next week or two the other two come out. Again, we talked about those. I think we just got to keep everybody focused. City of Tempe has apparently a lot of these details that exist through the City of Tempe for some of these irrigation and potential landscaping details. And so Eric with the City of Tempe is going to be looking into getting those available so we may not reinventing the wheel. And again, we're looking at that thing we always like to do, which is get rid of the city supplement and have it become a MAG standard in lieu of that. So that is becoming the next scope focus on looking at some more of those items. We talked about what other potential cases we would be looking for down the line, and we had a short presentation discussing this. Oh, yeah, and Gordon's got that up now. Thank you. In terms of the schedule for the landscape details, you kind of see where it's a very ambitious schedule, but the idea is we want to have as much ready as possible this year and it's just going to roll then right into next year with additional ones. So this will be the first major upgrade of a lot of those landscaping details in well over 20 years, with a lot of new information and basically updated most current standards, which is really going to be nice. We decided to come up with a list, so we're ready to go after we get this batch out. What do we want to work on next? And so you can kind of see the list that we talked about from, obviously the detention tanks and the dry wells and the swing check valves, backflow preventers. But we wanted to look at what other outside right-of-way, low-impact development items could go in there. We also included some things like curb extensions, the gabion wire baskets. We see a lot more of those being used in the right-of-way, next to the right-of-way, outside the right-of-way. I thought that may be a good one to go at. Pavement parking lots, we probably want to talk and work more with the materials and the asphalt working group to see if we want to start moving that way. And then looked at some of the current ones that should they be in the right-of-way, they should be outside, but we don't want to lose track of those. Gordon brought up some potential work with the sewer and water working group in terms of how work on outside the public right-of-way can impact work inside the public right-of-way. And I think that comes to some of the stub out details you were just looking at. And just again, keep the dialogue between the different working groups open so we know what they're doing, they kind of see what we're doing, see where we can help. Our next meeting is May 27th, again, virtual one, MS Teams at 11:30 a.m. Open any questions.
All right, thank you, Peter. Any questions? Anybody have any comments?
If not, I'm going to sign off. I'm supposed to be on vacation, and my wife is giving me dirty looks, so I'm going to get off at this point. Talk to you all later.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
But
Take care.
So I guess from there, we're just going to move on to item number 15, the general discussion about anything relating specifications, construction practices going on. I don't have anything. If anybody's got any new technologies or something that they want to talk about or bring up.
Hey, Craig, the only thing I've heard about is Crown Castle and the micro trenching. It's come back through us. I thought I saw that Phoenix had a pilot program, and I saw some email from Mesa and Chandler going on. So I didn't know if anybody had approached you about a case, and I'm not promoting that in any way because we have some issues with the micro trenching, but I'm just seeing a lot of activity and a lot of email, and they're not always going to staff. Sometimes they're going to city management to try to get the micro trenching approved. So I just didn't know if anybody else, Ryan or Jim or Craig, anybody else hear about the micro trenching?
Yeah, I know out here in Buckeye, we haven't heard anything, but we're not a real proponent for it. I mean, it's not anything that we're going to completely object to, not at this point yet. But we actually have development create easements specifically for dry utilities. So putting them in the roadway is not one of our, well, nothing that we would really like to do. So, but no, since the presentation we had from them, Buckeye, that I know of, we haven't heard anything. So I don't know about other cities.
At MEG last year, we had one of the companies that's trying to promote micro trenching give a presentation directly to the Regional Council of Mayors MEG agencies. They're kind of pushing it from the top down, I think, since they had some resistance from the bottom up, I think, as far as the departments wanting to implement it. I think they're kind of pushing it the other direction.
Dan, I think I think you talked with Lori from our office here in Mesa a couple weeks ago. I think I referred her to you, and then you referred her back to me. But she's been in contact with Phoenix and got quite a bit of information from them. And I know City of Mesa is more interested in waiting to see what Phoenix's pilot study shows than trying to pursue anything on our own.
Thank you, Ryan. And Lori was very helpful. Thank you. And Gordon, I didn't know if if you could share that PowerPoint with us.
I can't right now. I can find it. I'm not sure exactly.
Oh, yeah, yes. I'm not talking right now, but if you could provide it to us to take a look at and see what they're saying.
Yeah, I can see if I can find it. It was a presentation about a year ago to our regional, and it was presented by the same people who presented to our committee before that, but it was kind of a more general as far as their plans for creating a larger wireless network and how they can use micro trenching between the towers in order to make this happen faster. And so that's kind of the just the presentation, but I'll see if I can find it for you.
If I can, let me just make the statement that was brought up back when they made that presentation. It goes kind of along the lines of the discussion that's going on right now with the agencies regarding extra protection and separation of water and sewer and things of those lines of comments that they're doing right now. If they start putting micro trenching in the ground, which is, again, it's a great technology, how does Arizona 811 and the statutes, Arizona state statutes with regards to potholing, utility potholing, exposing a utility before you do anything, how does that come into play? Because if you've got a micro trench and you've got a micro duct bank in that trench, and by the state law for 811, you're supposed to expose it and find it, how does a contractor or a designer or anyone, or even a municipality go about building future infrastructure with micro trench in that alignment, or even to the point that they got to cross it perpendicular? So it's just something to be thinking about as it starts to become more and more a discussion topic.
So Arvid, is that still state law if you are doing an open cut as opposed to a directional drill?
So Arizona state law requires that every existing underground utility in the ground be pothole and exposed and verified before you do anything, even if you're going to open cut. You're not allowed to mechanically excavate within 2 feet of an existing underground utility. And now if you've got a utility that's micro trenched into the asphalt, how do you get to that if it's not in dirt? One of the things about underground infrastructure is that it's buried under the road, either in earthen backfill, slurry backfill. If you take an APS, SRP, a comm duct bank that's got slurry encasement, it's easy to find it because you can pothole down both sides. You can hook it on both sides, water lines, sewer lines, gas lines, you can find stuff. If this thing is buried in a trench in asphalt, how do you go about ensuring that it's not going to get damaged during the construction of the project? So those are just questions that have to be addressed, not so much at our level. I mean, practically speaking, you're talking about if they'll as-built the micro trench and identify the depth of it at every 20 feet, let's say, that's fine. We know where it's at and we're putting in whatever 18 feet below them. But still, you can't open cut across there, and you still have the law that says you've got to find it. So now how do you do that if it's in asphalt road? Those are just things that are going to have to be asked at some point.
When Gilbert was approached about micro trenching, the issue we had internally when we discussed it was I think that the deepest they could go was around 1 foot to 14 or 15 inches, I think. And it puts it for your major and minor arterials, which are most of the streets they wanted to go into, it puts it into your structural section. So you're going to somewhere AB. And the issue we had with it is you're saving them costs in their installation to further complicate your future full depth replacement of the roadway.
100%.
That was our big issue. Was it? I mean, to Arvid's point, if it's in the asphalt, every time you go to do a mill and overlay of that roadway, say every 7 to 10 years, you're tearing out their fiber optic and having to reinstall it, and they're going to have downtime. If it's in your roadway section or in the AB section, then every time you go to do a full depth replacement, you're essentially also having to properly install in conduit below the roadway section, as they would need to if they were going to directional drill or install it the correct way. So we opposed it just from the sheer standpoint of it was kind of for lack of a better phrase, maybe a get rich quick way for them to go through and do it. But the long-term benefits were all theirs, and it was nothing more than a long-term issue for the town. So that was our stance. We opposed it, and I'll continue to oppose it, as will I think our town engineer, our street department, and everyone else. So.
And thanks for putting it that way too, because again, it's got its place, but it doesn't have its place, in my opinion, inside the road prism. It's got to be outside the road prism, somewhere outside back to sidewalk and PUE, where major infrastructure improvement isn't going to be affected by it, because it's going to become a nightmare if you've got something at 8 inches deep. What do you do with something 8 inches deep? It's not
clear it out every time you go into the roadway.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just, you hit it on the head. It's cheap and easy for them, and it's a nightmare for the next 100 years.
Craig, I was able to find that presentation if you want me to pull it up or take a look at any part of it.
I guess I would leave it up to the committee. I think, just looking at the time, I know a lot of people will be, looking at their watches. Might just be better to put on the website underneath the committee information.
Yeah, I can do that. I will just mention that most of the examples that they're showing is actually installing it right between the asphalt and the gutter. That's where they want to install it.
That's a very difficult place to build future infrastructure if there's something shallow stuck right there.
Right.
Well, and we try to push all the dry utility companies, towards the edge of the road anyway, so they're just going to be in the way of somebody else. It's just,
correct.
I tell you, there's so many fiber projects coming in. It's getting challenging because you got to make sure they don't take your prime corridors. It's like, get behind sidewalk, get behind curb and gutter, and that's your only place. Because otherwise, it's just there's so much coming in, guys. It's just taking every corridor. So whenever you have to go in and put a future water or sewer line, you're going to be really challenged to find a place for it if you're not be careful where you let them go.
Yep. And that's why we have dedicated easements out here. So.
Yeah. And 8 foot PUE isn't wide enough. That thing should be changed.
Yeah. We just need wider PUEs.
So, well, good discussion. Any other discussions or items anybody wants to talk about? Interesting. Not hearing any. Moving on to adjournment. I can never remember, Gordon, is this just a motion and second and voice and we're out, or
it's all you. You can.
It's all me. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you for your participation, and we will see you next month. And have a great evening.
You too.
Thank you, Craig. You too.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys.
Thanks, Craig. See you. Bye.